You are in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Several members of the Framework team live and work in the area, which is called the Pioneer Valley. We also have a team in Boston, but I live here and love it. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a fourth-generation New Yorker. My father grew up in the housing projects in the Bronx, and my mother grew up deep in the heart of Brooklyn. And both of my parents are artists. And in the 1970s, when they were actually pregnant with me and the city was just emerging out of bankruptcy, they had an opportunity to buy a house, and they didn't. They didn't have any family money. They didn't have any money because they're artists. And they didn't have any models of home ownership in their lives to say this is a good decision. Flash forward, 30 some odd years of renting and helping to build the neighborhood that my brother and I grew up in. They were displaced. Home ownership is really about wealth, of course, but it's also about housing stability and the ability to really reap the benefits of neighborhood change that my parents helped to create but couldn't benefit from.
Framework Homeownership is a social enterprise with a mission to democratize homeownership. We help first-generation and first-time homeowners access the information and tools they need to make confident, informed decisions about homeownership.
The idea for Framework emerged out of that housing crisis of 2008. And what we saw was that millions of people were losing their homes, and those were not people who had had access to home buyer education before they purchased. And so what we said was, how can we do this differently? So our first product that we launched in 2012, coming out of the housing crisis, is a home buyer course.
Well, I think first of all, there's a lot of myths about homeownership. So people think that they need like 20% down or they need a certain credit score to access homeownership, and that can just sort of stop them in their place from even thinking about it. For folks who kind of get further than that, there's a lot of information out there and a lot of different resources, and people don't know who to trust.
What we don't want is we don't want someone for the biggest financial transaction of their lives to close their eyes and sign on the dotted line, Tell me when it's over.
So we learned a lot with the Framework Homeownership course, but it is very much focused on the home buying side of things. And what we learned through customer research and just through being part of the industry is that folks really need support along the full customer journey. So as they're thinking about homeownership, as they're buying, and then as homeowners.
What really needs to happen is people stay in their homes, and that also came out of what we saw in the housing crisis, when we saw people losing their homes at such scale, and really wealth being stripped from people, many people of color, and first-generation, first-time home buyers, homeowners. And we said we don't want that to happen ever again. And so we want to give people up front, when they're making those home buying decisions, the tools to make those decisions. And then also we want to support them over the long term. So with the Keep Home app, we've taken the stellar curriculum and the idea of using technology to get to scale that the Framework Home Buyer course has, and we've translated that into an app that is not only packaging and repackaging that home buyer information, but also supporting people over the long term.
We know that down payments are a huge barrier to home ownership for folks. And so helping people not only realize that there are 3% down products out there, but also giving them a product that gives access to that is a huge part of what we do. On the home ownership side, we've also piloted something called the Repair Funds Lookup, because we know that repairs in the first year or so for folks is a big barrier for sustaining home ownership.
It supports people as they're making those other critical financial decisions around maintenance and repairs, around budgeting, whether or not to refinance, how to use equity wisely. All of these really important critical questions that kind of make or break whether someone is successful at home ownership.
So one of the things that I love about my work is supporting people to gain access to home ownership. So it's about security for folks, it's about financial security and security for their family, but also I think it's just foundational. We all need a home. We all need a place to go back to, and to feel like we can be there for as long as we want to be. That's just foundational to thriving in this world. And so the fact that I get to do that and support that every day is amazing.